Well, this package called Internist is an example of home diagnosis programs. They're quite popular in the United States, and this is another American one, Apple a Day. Well, if you're not feeling quite well, you type in your symptoms, and in theory, the computer tells you what's wrong. Well, let's see if it works. Well, I've typed in some symptoms here: fatigue, weakness, general pain in the chest, difficulty breathing, rapid respiration, shortage of breath, weakness in the legs, pain leg, cramp like when walking, relieved by rest, and so on. Now, I'm going to ask the computer to run the diagnosis and tell me what's wrong with me. Now, I need a pooled diagnosis there, and now it's running through each one of those symptoms and checking up with every disease in the computer, every illness in the computer, to see which ones I'm most likely to have. And it analyzes it fairly rapidly, and there it comes out. Well, the first thing it says is I've got vitamin B1 deficiency, anemia from iron deficiency, ovarian cancer, small intestine cancer, and so on. David, is this any good?
Well, it's certainly true that if you had cancer or if you had anemia, you would actually come to your doctor with some of those symptoms. But the problem is that the software doesn't actually adopt the same decision-making process or diagnostic process of a doctor. What it's actually doing is looking through its database and taking the signs and symptoms you put in it, and then pooling all that information and extracting any illnesses which has got those signs and symptoms. So it's not following what doctors normally do. And I say it's dangerous.
Well, in fact, I cheated a little bit there. The symptoms I put in there is what you feel like near the summit of a Himalayan peak.
Oh dear. Well, if home micro software isn't much good at sorting out your body, perhaps they can do better with your mind. This home psychology program claims to let you analyse your boss or your potential partner. Now, I've already entered some details about my partner for the day, that is Mac, and the program is actually called, rather aptly, Mind Prober. Well, the sort of questions it asked me are the sort of things that any woman's magazine would ask you. You know, it's things like, is he aggressive? Is he handsome? Is he opinionated? Is he humorous? I'm not going to tell you what I replied, but I will give you a sample of the sort of conclusions that the software draws. It says here, are you ready for this, Mac? Mr. McD is an exuberant person who likes to do things his own way, and I didn't need a computer to tell me that. David, what do you make of this sort of software?
Well, to be honest, it's really rather superficial. It's a sort of pop psychology on a computer. And even though the conclusion may bear some resemblance with the reality, with that person's personality, I wouldn't really hold much for it. Though, of course, in the States, things like this sort of program, though considerably more sophisticated and might add expensive, are being used by the US Army for assessing their raw recruits, and also by business and commerces for assessing their prospective employees. And that's also true in this country as well. But one area I find quite frightening is a program called Mind Over Minors, which is produced to allow parents in the home to assess the psychological development of their children.
Well, one GP in Hackney is running a health information bulletin board on a Prestel-like system. Well, here's a page from a section on AIDS, and there are many other pages dealing with things like diet and exercise and so on. If you're interested, the telephone number is 01 986 4360. We spoke to Dr. Chris Dobbing, who runs the board. He said its main appeal was being able to access health information privately in your own home.
Well, of course, we can help ourselves by adopting a more healthy lifestyle. Programs like Your Health for the Spectrum have advice on diet and exercise, and this program, called Diet Analyzer, lets you work towards a given dietary goal. Now, anyone who's ever tried to go on a diet knows the problem. I mean, just keeping track of the calories is a monumental task, let alone trying to calculate fat, fibre, protein, all the other things that influence your weight and health. Well, Diet Analyzer is a sort of spreadsheet. What you do is you enter all the food that you've eaten or you'd like to eat, and then the software displays the nutritional value of that food, and it keeps a running total of your daily intake. And for instance, I noticed there on cholesterol, the cholesterol contained in just one egg, in fact, takes me well over my daily cholesterol allowance. So there's obviously not going to be any eggs in this particular diet of mine. But I also noticed that so far I've still got several calories to make up. But of course, the system doesn't yet know about the Big Mac that I consumed earlier on. So maybe I'd better put that in and see what it does to my total. Oh, it's got confused by Big Mac, so it's offered me the food directory. It's not macaroni, it's not Macedonian nuts, no, it's McDonald's Big Mac. 0. How many Big Macs? Well, it was 2. It's own up time. Oh, no, look at that. And my calorie total, you see, has gone way over the top, so I'm going to start my diet tomorrow. What do you think of this dietary software?
I must admit I'm really impressed by this sort of software because it's doing a job which the average GP would find very difficult, because GPs aren't trained as dietitians In fact, normally you'd have to go to a trained dietitian to get that sort of information. But this is doing a very good job. And more also to the point, it will help you devise exercise regimes for working off all those excess calories in the Big Mac.
Thank you very much indeed, David. What a pity there isn't more medical software that could genuinely help the work of a doctor.